You all ready to join me today in our trip to outer space?
Yeah.
Albert Shivers.
The Matrix doesn't happen.
That's very true.
Come along quietly or not.
Night.
Goodbye, Wills.
As I by the time to bright.
From Albert
The
Shivers.
mistress of the fading light.
They don't have to like it.
They're trying to put a caravan.
The general concept is that creativity flourishes in an atmosphere of freedom.
Hello, folks, and welcome to another episode of the Planet Shivers podcast. I am Albert Shivers, and I'm not going to take too much time. I wanted to get right to our guest on this episode. The guest is visual artist Laura Lippay. She is an artist who I only recently met, but we vibe really good, and it was really nice to talk to her and really cool to have her on the show. Before we get to Laura, though, just want to let you know I got a lot of new projects coming every day. You can check that out on Instagram at Albert Shivers or on the website www.albertshivers.com. And if you'd like to support the show, you can find the Albert Shivers Patreon page. If you know my name, you'll be able to find your way around. I made it out to Mahoning Valley Speedway this past Saturday, and I want to cover it, but I'm going to cover it on the next episode, if not the one after that, because a lot went down at that little track in Pennsylvania, and I'm excited to tell you guys about it. The secret word for this episode is craft. Find it and correctly timestamp it on YouTube and get a prize. And before we get into it, Laura's artwork is hanging currently at the Gamut Art Gallery, which is on 8th Street in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. Some of her newest work, which is also some of her best work, I really enjoyed. It's very different. I like it because her use of color. I work mainly in black and white, but I love good use of color, and Laura has fantastic use of color in her new oil paintings. So check them out. Go see them in person. I don't put the artist's work in a slideshow. I did that in the beginning with certain visual artists. I put their work in a slideshow while the podcast plays, but I'm not doing that anymore because I want folks to go see it in person. You can go to her pages on Instagram or find her on Facebook, but mostly go to Gamut Art Gallery and see the work for yourself right up close and personal, because that's the best way to do it with any art. And her work is also hanging in the Artery in Milford, Pennsylvania. That's not the Artery, the Artery in Milford. Go check that out as well. Forget the internet. Forget the phone. Go see this stuff in person. That's it and that's that. So I hope you enjoy this episode with Laura and myself in deep conversation about art, and we learn about her work, most importantly. Hope you enjoy after these messages.
WVFW, Brooklyn, New York.
Come and eat at Alberta's Pizzeria, the only place for authentic Italian Jewish cuisine, home of the only Grandma Yetta pie, the best kosher pie this side of the Wailing Wall. Plus, we cater birthdays, sweet 16, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, baptisms for the goys, and we offer free sausage topping for any bris. Alberta's Pizzeria, pizza you'll want to eat everywhere.
Hey, everybody, whoever's listening.
I'm Tony Viagra. That's your comedy. I'm the podcast.
I'm excited to be joined by the amazing artist Laura Lippay. Thanks for coming on the show.
I'm super excited to be here
Cool.
in your colorful, characteristic place and talking to you, an artist. It's awesome.
Thank you. So we'll just jump right in. You have a show right now going on at the Gamut Art Gallery.
Yeah.
How many pieces do you have there right now?
I think it's 6.
Okay. And was there like a theme to them? Are some of them new? Or are they from the past? Talk a little bit about.
I think there's two kind of things going on there. One of them, they're all kind of different inspiration. One of them is this woman kind of sitting back and smoking, and I wanted to do something. I saw the frame, and I was thinking 1920s kind of woman, and so I kind of went in that style, and it ended up she was sitting there with a cigarette, leaning back and on a couch, and as I was painting her, I was listening to a lot of old jazz and stuff. I like to listen to music that's kind of similar to what I'm painting, and I couldn't think of what this was really about, and it occurred to me the phrase "time will tell" seemed right for it. Like she was sitting, she's thinking, she's on a couch. Seems like she's at a party. She's got her, her jewelry on, and but she's sitting back by herself having a cigarette. And I thought time will tell is enough mystery behind it, and it seems right. Something about what she's thinking about. Something, time will tell what the answer is. So that's one of them. One of them that I'm super excited about was I have these, I went to Cuba a couple years ago, and I got these magazines called Bohemia from the 1950s. Oh my gosh, you got to see these sometimes. Sometimes you would be blown away by what's in them. But I'm looking, and it's all in Spanish, so it's hard to read a lot of them. But there's all kinds of I guess there was some bad shit going on back then, and you see like images and stories about people who were assassinated, and their bodies are there covered in blood in the photos. There's these sections on Hollywood, and Elvis is in some of them, and some other things like that, and they're really thick. So I don't know what all of them are about. There's really old ads in there, but there was this one photo that I always saw that I thought was really interesting of this this woman on an old Chase lounge, and she's got this gown on and it's flowing, and she's laying there, and she looks like either she was like drunk and just sort of like plopped down, or maybe she's exhausted and plopped down or whatever. And so I translated it I was like, I would love to paint that. I think I want to paint something like that. And so as I got the canvas out, I started reading it, and I'm seeing Sophia Loren, her, it's about her, so it must be Sophia Loren. So I'm like, okay, cool. Let's see what this is about. I translated it. It was a scathing article. Okay. Oh man, it was really about how she was sleeping, her. Can I say things like her tits were out? Yeah. And how she was rubbing up to all these guys in Hollywood, and it was really scathing. And I'm like, well, maybe I won't make it Sophia Loren. I tried to find the photo somewhere else online to see if there was feedback around it. I couldn't find it anywhere. Okay. Using Google Lens, and so I was like, I'm going to paint it, but I'm not going to make it Sophia Loren, because I don't want that scathing part. But a lot of the article was about how she was bored. She wrote her mother, she was bored in Hollywood, and so I named it Ennui, because she's, the woman is bored. She's laying there just whatever, So there's that one. There's probably one or two I'm forgetting about, but the other series is the Suns, and I've been super into Suns lately, because I think about what I'm painting and why I'm painting things sometimes, not all the time. And a lot of what I want to try to do is light. I want to bring light into it in some way, whether it's visually or whether it's the emotion. I want to bring positivity. In a way, because a lot of the stuff that I've looked at, or even stuff I like, is darker. Mm-hmm. And do I go that route in my art, or do I try to bring some more positivity to the world in a way? And so I've really there's these two women there, these two tall paintings, these two women that are holding light in their hands, and then there's the three suns. And the two women that are holding light, it just those just happened. I just started painting, and those just happened. I didn't have something in mind. And the one girl, her hand was out, and I was like, well, what should be in her hand? And it's just light. Well, I'll just put light there. And if I think something else later, I'll do something else. But they're both holding light. And one of them is a warm light, and one of them is a cool light. And so they're called Rise and Shine. And it's sort of, you put them next to each other, it looks like the cool light is giving the her cool light to the warm light, and the warm light's giving her a warm light to the cool light one. And some friends of mine recently said that it reminds them of Reiki, so I've super been into Reiki now. I'm like trying to learn more about that, and I see that. The suns, it's just something I just want to paint right now. Suns, I just want to paint suns. And those 3 were the first 3. And I was originally inspired by the red suns that we saw recently with the fires in Canada, and all the dark skies and the dramatic red suns. And that's why I just got up one morning and I started all 3 of them, just threw it all into canvas and started going. And so I wanted to find a balance between the horrible story behind that, and global warming, and how these beautiful, crazy looking skies are also a warning to us of like what's happening right now, and in a way. But I didn't want it to be that dark either, so I didn't want the paintings to come across super dark. So I, tried to not, the story is a little dark, but the paintings are super colorful. And since then I've been painting suns. I've got probably 10 or 12 of them at home that I'm doing right now, and more I'm going to do when I get back. All different kinds of suns.
Gotcha. So with some of those paintings you mentioned that 2 of them just happen. Yeah. So what is that process like when something just happens?
I'm trying to figure that out. I am so trying to figure that out. Listening to art podcasts and listening to interviews with artists and watching shows and episodes of interviews with artists. The one thing I see in common is that people that really inspiring and really good artists, so many of them talk about just turning everything off, turning your brain off, turning everything off in a flow state. And I can't say I'm good at that yet, but it happens sometimes, so that's what my whole goal is to find that flow state. And when you have that, you're an artist, when you have that thing that just clicks, and you're like, gotta get something out, gotta get the pens out, gotta get the paint out, gotta do it right now, go. And that's great, but it doesn't always happen like that. And I think there's a lot of pieces to get into place to get there, but when it does happen, it's a gift.
Yeah, I think that getting there is different for everybody.
I agree. Yeah.
Because we're all doing it our own way.
What is it for you? Like, how do you find a flow state?
I think that if I'm really excited about what I'm working on, or really into it, and not to say that I'm not into every piece, but there's one that I'm like, okay, I'm really into this one, and it's easier for me to get there. Yeah. Also, like for me, I have a lot of fun experimenting, and that could get me there too. Yeah. And
that's a good point. I think that has a lot to do with it, is experimenting, because then you're not thinking about it, you're just going with something. Yeah.
And every piece for me, and this isn't like about my work today, but every piece for me, I
love to learn though too,
Every piece for me has like I try to work a little bit of improv in there. Like I don't know what I'm going to do when I get here yet. Some pieces more than others. Yeah. But I like that. I like just the little bit of like unpredictability, because then when it works out, and like you've jumped with no net, so to speak, artistically, and it works out, like you feel good about it, you feel good about the piece, and it gives you the confidence to push that line a little further next time.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
And then when it doesn't work, you just I've just trained myself to like fall down and feel bad for 20 minutes. Yeah. And kick and scream.
Fall down 7, inside. Stand up 8.
Yeah. Yeah. And then be like, okay, like that didn't work. Why didn't it work? Yeah. How can I not make that happen again?
You learn from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. It is a hard state to find. And I think for me, the way I think about it, I'm trying to find a way to quit my job. my career
we
that
all?
yeah, right. My career that I built for 20 some years takes all my time, and I feel like if I could have 8 hours to paint in a day instead of working in tech, I have 8 hours to paint a few times a year. If I could have that time, at least once, twice, maybe 3 times a week, what a difference that would make. And I'm relentlessly trying to find that. So I think that's what keeps me out of a flow state often, because I'm trying to figure out how can I make money in art, so I can quit my job so that I can actually do the art that just flows.
Yeah, I hear you. Time, it is such a battle.
Yeah.
And there are times, Laura, where I won't even start a piece because I know in a half hour I'm gonna have to stop.
Right.
So
right. Yeah.
Sometimes, if I'm in the middle of something, then I could jump in and jump out. But to start.
Right, you could do a little couple of parts of it because you know what you want to do next, but to get it going.
Yeah. I need more than an hour.
Yeah.
Just to rev myself up. And we were talking a little bit about the mathematics of doing things. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, unless if it's on my table literally, or I'll have a pad, I'll keep notes. I have graph paper that I'll keep notes on or do sketches on so I don't forget.
Oh, good idea.
So if I know oh geez, in 45 minutes I gotta go do this thing.
Yeah.
Go work here. So I'll just write down in over detailed. This is what you have to do when you go back to this piece. Oh, perfect,
yeah.
The eyes are gonna do it. Because some of those details will fly away with the drudgery of everyday life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. I used to do that with when I started painting. I just really started getting into this in 2018. And I didn't understand how to put together a palette. I mean, so many options. What do you do? And I was watching a lot of YouTube videos on, how people put together their palettes. And I finally came up with one that I like to use and I use often. But before that, I would do the same thing with my palette colors. I'd put it all down and I'd write next to them all, what colors they were. So if I didn't get back to it again for another month, I knew what that was, what I mixed together, So it wasn't on the painting per se, but I wanted to remember. It was so difficult to, come back to, or if I had to touch it up, I'd go back to that. I'd save the palette, and what colors was I using here? What was it, oil or acrylic? It's useful to take notes.
Yeah, notes, or I'll do photos, working on a collage. Before I glue everything, I'll lay everything out.
Oh yeah.
And take a picture, and then be able to go back and know at least where everything was.
Yeah, yeah, the creative process.
Yeah. So you mentioned you listen to music when you paint. Do you always listen to music when you paint?
It's not always music. It's usually something in the same theme or mood.
Okay.
It depends. I listen to podcasts. I listen to something all day, every day. Even when I'm working and I have my lunch hour, I listen to a podcast or NPR or something. Constantly feeding my brain. But usually if I'm painting something, it's something in that realm or in that mood, that just kind of keeps me in that space, or I learn more. I painted these 2 Ukraine paintings, I guess right after the war started there, watching the news and being devastated by what I saw. I just got out some paint and I spent, I don't know, maybe a month in the room just painting these things, but also listening to stories about what was going on there now, music, Ukrainian music, Ukrainian, reading old Ukrainian sort of folklore, and what a strong people they are. They have dealt with war generation after generation after generation, and they're like, we got this, we're good, we're gonna make this work, and we're strong people. And I learn about that as I'm doing it.
So, and I remember those Ukraine paintings. They were also at Gamut.
They were, yeah. Great. Oh, thanks.
I was really just how you captured like just cityscapes like that, and amongst the war.
Yeah.
And I really thought they were great.
Oh, I appreciate that.
And it sounds like you really immersed yourself in it to make those paintings.
Totally.
And that probably helped you to just nail them the way that you did.
And really get the feeling
so
through and make sure I
Absolutely.
understand what I'm painting too, you know.
Yeah.
One of the things I was super embarrassed about those is I painted the flag upside down on the arm. So one of them is a woman and she's got a tear. You know, so one of the things we saw women taking up arms and fighting back, right? Which I was super inspired by. And so that's what one of the drawings is. But she's got like there's an explosion or fire in the background, and she's got a tear coming down her face, but she's got a strong will, and she's got the flag on her arm. I painted the flag upside down, and I didn't know it. And somebody that was Ukrainian came into the artery gallery and pointed that out, and I took it home that night and repainted it, and was like, oh my gosh, how embarrassing, because I also want to make sure I understand what I'm painting when I do it, and I guess that, you know, that's one of the details I missed. Yeah, you know, I wanted to say I listened to your episode with Karen Shapiro, yeah, which I thought was awesome, and
thank you.
I really so much about that was great, and I really enjoyed hearing her talk about political art, because I've been trying all different kinds of art to see what I like to do, see what sticks, see how people react, all the things, right? And there's some political art. There's another series I did about the looting that happened in the George Floyd protests in Philadelphia, and I think about these, and I'm like, why would I put this in the gallery? Because who wants to put this on their wall? It's terrifying and sad and scary, and you know, to hear her speak about, you know, her motivations behind her art and her political art was really, really, really helpful to hear that and understand why, you know, that is still important to have it out there.
Yeah, and it's that, what I got from that, and even our conversation, is how much of the art is for us that we create, and like how much of it is like to be displayed, to be sold.
To tell a story
right,
that has a message.
There are times when I don't think about anybody else. Yeah. And there are other times when I will be like, wow, I can't wait for like people to see this one. I'm gonna really hit them with this one. But that, I kind of got some of that from the conversation with Karen too. Yeah. Of just, and her paintings are huge, and they like from that point of view, they're really big. It's a lot of materials. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of passion, and
a very bold statement.
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that, and hearing from her about it. You know, she said in it, she's like, you know, I don't see people hanging this above their couch. She's like, I wouldn't hang it above my couch either, but there's still a purpose for it, and that just, you know, it's a game changer hearing that, you know.
Yeah, and even like especially after that one, but even before, like we all have it in us, like in a different way, the art, and we have to be a little bit selfish maybe with like what we're creating, just to keep our own sanity. At least that's how I feel.
And it's also you that's coming out, right, onto the canvas or onto the paper, right? It's you. So I think I think selfish maybe has, you know, bad connotations as a word, but I think it's, maybe there's another word for it. It's sort of an inward, bringing something inward out, you know, that's, maybe it's selfish in a way, of course, but, you know, it's not selfish to hurt other people.
Right.
Yeah, not that part of it.
Right. So whether it's, you know, the Ukraine art that you did, the protest art, or even the newer stuff that's a little bit lighter, how, when you're working on something or you're going through a period, let's say, how immersed, it sounds like you get very immersed in it.
Yeah.
So how do you go about that? So you mentioned like you're listening to things, you were listening to Ukrainian music, listening to the news about what's going on, and I imagine that really affects the process and how the art comes out. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. Well, I think it's hard to listen to podcasts or, news radio kind of stuff or whatever, when you're really focusing on something else, even if it's just, structure, you're really thinking about what you're doing, because you're really thinking about what you're doing in a lot of it.
Yeah.
Once you have a lot of the structure there and maybe you're just doing highlights or something, it's easier to also use part of your brain somewhere else. But it's really difficult. I really find it easier to either put on some music. When I was painting the girls with the light, I was listening to a lot of Bjork. Oh man, bringing out the old Bjork, albums and just like really getting into that. That those high notes that she reaches, and the colorfulness and just eccentricity of Bjork, that it channels through you into your art. I feel like whatever you're listening to.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Like I'll pick certain things to or not to listen to or have on.
Because it makes a difference, right?
It does.
Yeah.
It does, and it could even inspire me in a different direction.
Oh yeah.
Too, like it could change. It might change the path of it even.
Interesting. Yeah. Huh.
And
because sometimes you hear like phrases in there, and you're like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." I don't know. I want to depict that in some way.
Yeah. Even just like the mood of the music, even.
Yeah.
Can kind of steer you without you even really noticing it.
Yeah.
But it is hard for me to create in silence. Like I like something, and like you say, the amount you pay attention to it can vary. But even if it's just something going on in the background, just some kind of rhythm.
Sometimes is any like sound or music just too much? You have to focus so much that you like silence is better.
Very rarely for me. Now I think it's just habit to put on some music. Because I think boiling it down, it's the rhythm.
Oh, yeah.
That I need.
Interesting.
Because it's all kind of like, there is a rhythm, whether I'm painting or if I'm making my little dots.
Yeah.
Like there is a rhythm to it.
That is interesting.
And sometimes I'll try to like tune in what I'm listening to.
Yeah.
To what I want to draw or paint.
So many thoughts about that. Yeah. Music is everything, I feel like. It's just so important. So important.
Yeah.
It's such even without coupling it with art. It is that rhythm, that's something in it, in the music you're listening to, that still flows through you in some way, and I think it's so important. There was a woman that I met not too long ago that when she was working, so the Artery is the other gallery out in Milford that I have stuff in, and also it's a co-op, so we also work there if you're a working artist, if you're a working member. And there was a woman that didn't play any music all day while she was there, and I respect that. For her, that's what she needed, is that kind of silence, I guess. I don't get it. I don't know how you could do it. I don't know how you could. I can't go a minute without music. I feel like, or at least like a podcast or learning something. Like I'm a constant learner every day. I want to learn things. So if it's not music, I've got to be like feeding something into my head. But the rhythm still of music, whatever it is, makes such a difference. I feel like it really it can save you.
Yeah, and especially like saying, like, detaching it just from art, just throughout the day, like you're saying, it can change your whole headspace.
Yeah.
The right song or the right memory attached to the right song.
Yeah.
And it might, like, I've experienced music that just like works just in one moment, or like I'll find a song that
like if you get really angry and you're just like, I gotta work this out right now, let's put on some freaking Sepultura and bang it out, and then cool, all right, I'm ready to go out the door now. Exactly. And face people. Yeah.
So it could just adjust the whole day.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Yeah, it's great.
So what's so you mentioned Bjork. What's some like go-to music, or does it depend on what you're working on?
Totally depends on. There's not a go-to. There's not really a go-to. Yeah. I think, there's a go-to when I'm working at the gallery. I'm always playing Ella, but that's because I put other stuff on and people will come in and be like, what is this? And I don't want to piss people off,
Right.
So, like, I had Wax playing one day and, he curses and stuff. And some woman was like, this music is not right. And I was like, fine.
Yeah.
I'll change it. But, no, I don't have a go-to, I don't think. Yeah, it's just all different.
Gotcha. It's pretty much the same for me.
Right? It's the energy you're feeling. You got to find the music to match it, to bring it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if I'm not leaning one way or the other, I'll go, like I just have an old 20s, 30s jazz playlist.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
On my phone that I just put together myself that's the fallback one.
That's awesome.
And then
I feel like I've heard that, and it's like the music is in the background of the podcast a little bit, right? It's just like saxophony, like.
Yeah, I do some musical jujitsu in these podcasts to not get them taken down.
Oh.
And I found the sweet spot where you could listen and you could still make it out.
Yeah.
But the algorithm doesn't nab me either.
Yeah, right.
So that's been a fun. That's been a fun
interesting.
game in 100 and some odd podcasts.
It's good music though. It's good to just it's upbeat for the most part, right? It's kind of like old timey, like what we were just talking about, of like something in older stuff has this energy to it that that flows through. Yeah.
When I listen, especially to that old jazz stuff. You're essentially most of those musicians were black.
Yeah.
And it was a bad time to be black, especially here. And you are listening to musicians and artists who are having moments of freedom in a period where they're generally not.
Yeah. What a great
And they're
way
just
to put
putting
that.
all of it into... Like if you ever, there's one song in particular, which is "Dark Eyes" by Louis Armstrong, and it's just such a a lot of times we see him as like the smiley guy with the horn,
right?
Right. But every so often he's just badass, man.
Huh?
And this is one of those songs.
Oh, interesting.
And
I'm gonna listen to that on
that's
the way
a
home.
cool one. Yeah, I'll send you a link to it
Huh.
because that's a cool one and. The song just slowly erupts into this jazz frenzy. And I see it just as just total freedom.
Interesting.
Where they're not worried. And you could apply that artistic freedom to anything.
Yeah.
Really. They're just doing it with music.
Through their music.
And it's amazing.
It's why their music is so good.
Right.
I was listening to Gil Scott-Heron on the way here.
Oh,
Huge.
Cool.
He's like, if you could, pick somebody that, from the past to have dinner with or whatever, I would love to. I'd love to hang out with him. But Nina Simone and Billie Holiday and oh my gosh, I've read all the Nina Simone biographies and watched all the movies. I listened to all of her music and and I never thought of it that way. I mean, I guess in a way, you know it. You can't get past the fact that they are really pouring out their heart and soul, and all the shit they have to deal with is coming out through their music, and it's what makes it so amazing. And like Nina Simone, like having people stopping on stage and telling people to shut up, and listen to my music. I so admire that. But it's interesting to think about that as that's their artistic output for something they, really living in a really difficult time.
Yeah.
Has come through in such a beautiful way.
And I even notice the rhythm of the podcast can even change. So a lot of times I'll do roundtables where I'll get 4 or 5 people together, whoever they are, who are just into it. Okay, we're going to sit and just see what happens. And I'll always tune in something low in the background. Not that it would overpower the recording. Right. But I do feel like it makes a difference.
Totally.
And it just helps that flow of conversation.
I've never understood people who say they don't listen to music. I just don't get it.
Yeah, no, same.
I don't get it. Maybe they just don't know yet,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Or they just didn't
Maybe their rhythm isn't there. There's just no rhythm there. It's just kind of flat in some way.
Or they just haven't found what speaks to them yet, which,
true.
I don't know.
You gotta look. We've got everything on Spotify now.
Exactly.
Go find it.
that's what like I can get like that can get under my skin where it's like it's all there. Like half the music I listen to is not of my time.
Yeah.
But we're curious, we dig. You try to find and just that journey. Like there's music that I don't listen to now that I may have listened to 10 years ago and I was all about it.
Yeah.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm not so much now. Don't really even think about it, but it was part of the path to get me to what I'm listening to now.
Yeah.
It's like it's
That
still
makes
just as
sense.
important.
Yeah.
But I don't.
And one day you'll go back to it probably. You'll be in that space again where
Exactly.
like that's the right rhythm for you, the right story, the right message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I love it.
To go back to art real quick, this always is interesting to me. So you mainly work with oils, or is it acrylic?
I just switched back to acrylic for the first time since I started. But
Okay.
I have been working with oils, yeah.
So what, for either, you could go on about either one, but like what made you choose those mediums?
Oh, I started in acrylic because I stole all my mom's paint, and that was acrylic.
Okay.
From like the 70s. She's such a great artist, and I wish I was thinking about this morning, if she didn't have 4 kids and have to try to, keep everyone fed and, keep all of us from going to jail and whatever, she probably could have done a lot more with her art. And to just think of where she could have gone with it, because seeing the stuff she did, when she was younger was just really incredible. But she had acrylics, so I stole those and started with that. And I switched to oil, and what I like about oil is that the blending, that you can take as much time as you need to blend and scrape and blend and mush things together and add on layers, and it's really cool. I really enjoy that. The reason I switched back to acrylic just now is because, for one thing, I use Gamsol, and I keep the window open in the winter, and it's expensive. It's getting more expensive to do this now that I have a bigger house. So I'm like, what could I do? Oh, I could switch back to acrylic. But also, I guess it's this time of year, a lot of the galleries are doing small works. And I realized I can do stuff quicker with acrylic. So I just kind of have to get my flow going with acrylic again to figure out how to do similar like layers and things like that I've been doing with oil. So some of those suns that I did in oil paintings that are at Gamut right now, I'm doing some other versions in acrylic and testing it out again to see what I could do. And it's fun. I like it. And I don't have to keep the window open because you just water,
Right. Cool.
So, but I really want to do watercolor. I am dying to do watercolor.
I can see your style looking real good.
Oh,
in
man.
watercolor.
I can't wait. I have some ideas. I just need to find that 8-hour stretch one day to play around.
Right.
Yeah.
It goes all back to time.
Yeah, it goes back to time, exactly.
So, one that you brought up, and it's interesting to me, what type of art did your mother do?
She has everybody's got some paintings. I wish I had one of them. But she has this one painting of herself. It's pretty big. I'd say it's maybe 5 feet tall, 6 by 5 or 4 by 5 or something. And it's of her sitting in the corner, and her shoes are there, and she's just kind of sitting in a corner, and it's beautiful. She's really into Native American, Indian and cowboy, Western type stuff and history, and some of her art is around that. She's very observant. She used to do a lot of clay work, so she made a lot of little clay people and like little people holding hands and love, things and. So yeah, she was very artistic, but I guess we came along and ruined it. So, but now she's retired now, which I'm excited about, and we've been out of the house for a long time. My youngest brother is 16 years younger than me, so they've all been out for a little while. So I send her a bunch of canvases and paint and stuff, and try to get that going again. Cool. Do it, Mom. We'll see.
Gotcha. Cool, though. I think, so do you feel that any of that, I would imagine, trickle down to you?
Oh, I'm sure.
Artisticness.
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't know about style as much. And if I think about my mom's style and my style in terms of like how we dress, it's nothing. We have nothing in common almost. So it probably makes sense that our art isn't as similar. But she is incredibly artistic. And I think between her and my grandmother, her mother, I feel like both of them are the influence that they've had on me. My grandmother used to have this photo of me that I took for a photography class, which I got a D in. I took a photo of myself.
I failed many art class.
Right, me too.
Yeah.
History twice.
Yeah.
I was crying, and I had all this makeup like strewn down my face, and I took a picture of myself. And I don't know how my grandmother had it or why. She had it framed. It was in her dining room. She loved it. And, I think about that. Back then I didn't understand, and I was a little embarrassed. But now I get it, because there's like this. My mom and my grandmother both were very much into poetry and Shel Silverstein and, this creative, like, my grandmother was a librarian, she was very much into, like representing women and supporting women. And, I think there was my mom was really into Rod McEwen. There's a lot of sad poetry. So there's this side that's like expressing things that people don't usually express, through their daily lives, that comes out in art, that I really appreciate. And I'd love to tap into that a little bit more, I think some of it comes through like the ennui painting, and the woman smoking, talking about time will tell. But, yeah, I think there's more. I think there's more to it. There's this understory that is, I think there's still something in there that I haven't quite tapped into yet.
Okay.
That comes from them.
Yeah, makes sense to me. As you were talking, it made me think about, do you ever, when you look back at a piece of your own art that might be, over a year old, I guess what my question would be, as more time goes in between you and a finished product, do you look at it differently as time goes past? Do you see things that you didn't see when you were working on it? I've had that experience here and there. Yeah. And that's another question I like to ask other artists.
Have you? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it hasn't been that long. I dabbled in, drawing and painting and stuff back when I was taking advertising design classes at Northampton, and they had like these intro classes. So I was painting and drawing back then, and then I did one semester of graphic design where I got to paint and draw a little bit for that. But really, I started in 2018, so it hasn't been that long yet. But when I look at, I think of this all the time. When I look at the stuff that I was getting out, getting out something and painting on it back then, and I couldn't figure out anything. How do I mix colors? What do I do? Like, what's the structure? How do I do these darks and lights? Like, had no idea. But I would just do it anyway. And then since then to now, I've learned so much. And I, look at every time I do a painting or a series of paintings, I feel like I've come a little bit farther, and I've come a little bit farther every single time. So yeah, I look back at some of that, and I know what I didn't know. Right. I see what I didn't know, but I still look at things now, at artwork now, and I'm like, I'm going to get to that. I don't know how yet, but I'm going to get to that. And one day when I'm at that, I'll be able to look at what I'm doing now and be like, yeah, I see why I couldn't get there, because I needed to learn this, and this first.
Gotcha.
Constantly feel like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's trippy, for me to look back at old art, because there's that element of
what do you see that you didn't?
Technically, the technical part of it, which I completely can understand and can get pulled down by, or not want to show older pieces because they're not up to what I think they should be. But even certain pieces that I look back on, because when I'm creating, I'm in. Yeah. I know what I want. I'm not really. There's things that I'm not thinking about because they get in the way. Yeah. Of the flow. Yeah. And I've gone back and looked at something, technical aspect aside, and just look at it and go, geez, that's what I was going through then? Or it makes more sense a year later or even 6 months later when I'm not on top of it. Because because I definitely feel a different relationship to pieces when I'm working on them to when I see them.
Yeah.
You know, I had like this big moment. I was helping Jim take down a show at Gamut, and it was a show I was in. And I was in the same room that your work is in now.
Yeah.
It was like 4 or 5 different pieces. And the show went good. I don't think any of them sold, but that's fine. But there was no reason for me to feel bad about it, put it that way. And I'm standing in this room, and I'm about to take down the paintings and patch the holes, and I'm looking at all my work, and it all looked exactly the same to me.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I said, everybody's told me they like this, but in my head, but I know this is all just the same painting over and over again. Just one's Duke Ellington and one is a portrait of somebody totally different, but it's the same piece of art. And that like twisted into my head, and I'm like, okay, can I move myself in a different direction here?
You just evolved.
Yeah. And so sometimes
I think of it more as like you're in a phase, or you've got a series where you probably did you do a lot of those at the same time? Yeah, you know, so like it makes so much sense, you know, and then you're ready to move on to, you've experimented with that, and now you're ready to do the next thing, whether it's layering something new onto what you've learned from doing that, or just doing something completely different. Yeah. Definitely don't knock yourself for it, that's for sure. You know what you know, bringing up like older stuff, and I was looking at the front page of Saatchi Art, and I don't remember what they call it, something like emerging artists, or, you know, new artists or something like that. Not new artists, like something that's like popular. And I'm looking at this stuff, and I'm like, they definitely have let go of structure. They have let go of, like, you know, something that could be meaningful to most people. What's popular right now? I look at my very first painting, my very, very first one in 2018. It's a building floating out there. There's some trees floating around. You know what I mean? Obviously I didn't know what I was doing, but that's the kind of stuff I see that's so popular right now, of like letting go of it making sense. And just like, it's a lot of shapes, but when you look at it, it's cool. It's really cool. It's very abstract. It's, you know, and so I think there's even a place for, you know, some of that stuff that doesn't have, as much as we learn more and learn more and learn more, sometimes there's a place for just letting that go. And just, you know, I don't know. I look at it and I try to understand. That's one of those things right now. I'm trying to understand, how do I get to something like that? I've been learning so much technique and learning by looking at everyone else and what they're doing, and the palettes and the colors and their process. And I look at what's at the front page of Saatchi Art, and I'm like, okay, you know, or like Hunt Slonim is the new guy that I just discovered and was obsessed with. And I just bought one of his paintings. It's $6,000 for a painting this big. It's like I know people can't see, it's probably like an 8x10. And a really nice antique frame. And his bigger paintings are in the 20,000, 30,000, you know, whatever. But this painting, he gets up every morning and he does a painting of a bunny. He drew one in the book. He signed a book for me. He does it in about, you know, 5 seconds. Bam, done. And it's going for $6,000. And, you know, I'm like, the technique is out the door. Color is out the door. A palette is out the door. You know, it's something. What is that? What is it about him and what he does that makes his art so? I know, like, celebrities buy it, and so that must be why. And I've been reading about him, and there's like a whimsiness to it, you know. So I get that. I get it. I read it and I get it. But I also look at that and I'm thinking, gosh, I'm trying so hard to evolve my craft, and here he is doing a 5-second bunny that costs $6,000. How?
Like I asked with something like that, I asked the question of, okay, is at that point, is it the art or is it
the artist,
him that they're buying?
Yeah.
So that, and
I don't know what it is about him.
To that point,
I can't figure it out.
I don't know.
But then I think you got the right question, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's baffling, but that's also what's so interesting about the art world too, is that you know, you could do something that's just super simple, and it's about how people feel.
Yeah.
It's about how it makes people feel, which ties back into what I keep thinking about light and sun and, you know, things like that. Is I want people to feel good when they see my art. I don't want to bring too much tragedy and heartbreak and bad feelings. I don't want to bring too much of that.
Yeah. Has there ever been for you like a standout moment of somebody seeing a piece of yours and how they reacted to it or how they experienced it?
I don't know about standout. I've heard some interesting things. I can't think of one that's really standout. I haven't really. I mean, the first time that I've had something in the gallery was just 2 years ago when Jim and Mary said, "Come on down." Yeah. But I don't really get to see or hear a lot of what people say because, you know, you get the show opening, but then that's it. But at the Artery,
those are always such a whirlwind.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Yeah, they're fun. But at the gallery, I do hear a lot because you're working there and people are coming in. They're talking about everything as they're walking around, so I get to hear a lot. But the series that I did of the looting in Philly, and it's just, I think it's 6 or 8 of them, of all these scenes that I saw of like a building on fire and people, you know, smash and grab, and this one woman was shopping you know, all the stuff that was like looted out, and it was stuff that fell onto the street. There was tons of it all over the place, and she was there pushing a stroller with looked like about a 2-year-old, you know, shopping the remnants of it, you know, just picking stuff up. And so I like painted all those scenes, and someone had come into the gallery and said, and I didn't get to hear it, I heard it from someone else who was working that day, that was like, yep, that's exactly what that was like. That really captured, you know, what it was like that day. And I was like, I wish I could have been there to talk to that person and, you know, talk about it. But I don't get to hear that much of it yet. I get to hear some of the reactions, but nothing that's stood out that much yet. Maybe sometime in the future.
Oh, I'm sure. So what are you working on currently?
More Suns, currently. What I want to do, though, I am so excited about. I have so many ideas. So the Suns, I'm really into this retro thing. I'm really inspired by street art, and I always have been. And I wrestle with the fact that it looks so easy versus it being meaningful, and like, where's the balance of it? To me, I feel like I never try to do the things that are easy, and I can't figure out why I don't just do it. You know, because even if it's easy, it could be really cool looking, you know, and it could be meaningful in some way. So right now I've got this series of retro suns that I'm working on. They sort of remind me of the 60s and 70s. Like, I feel like I had a t-shirt with like an old sun with like lines on it and like the sun coming out. So doing a series of suns and like trying to think of what colors did they have back then, like what was Bob Ross painting with, like alizarin crimson and Indian yellow, and like pulling out some of these old colors and trying to, you know, make those. So I'm super excited about those. And then there's another series I'm going to do. I don't want to say it yet. I
That's
can't.
all right.
I'm so crazy excited about them.
Cool.
But yeah, it'll probably take me a couple months to get them out. But yeah, it's different, very abstract. Jim was saying do abstract, and I'm like, I don't know how. But that's the challenge, right? I don't know how, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I could see it working out good.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's great. At least, like, the thing I like about the suns is that it is all abstract, but I throw a sun in there, and to me, there's something there that I can latch onto and paint the rest of it around, you know?
No, I could definitely relate to that, of, like, just having one spot to put your foot in the painting, and then just go for it all around.
I know what it is now, so I can do the rest, can be whatever, you know?
Cool.
But I know it's a sun.
Right. Where, so we've talked about Gamut. Where can people find you and your work now?
So there's 2 places I'm in right now, and one is Gamut. Every, couple months I've been really lucky to be in Gamut, which is really great. I learn so much every time I go talk to them, and every time I have new stuff, I make sure I show them because I do feel like it evolves and changes. So I've been lucky enough to be in there a bunch. The Artery in Milford, such a great gallery. Like the feeling when you walk in, it's a good energy in there, good people. It's a co-op. Mm-hmm. So everyone that's in there is also, not everyone's working there, but, they're also members. Right. So there's stuff there. I just joined WCAA, so Wayne County Arts Alliance, and I haven't had time to get anything up there yet. So I think by December I'll have some things there. Shooting for that. Those suns, actually, those retro suns I want to take there. And then my next place that I want to aim at, that I'm looking at, and I don't know their process yet, but I've heard a lot of good things about Upfront Gallery in over in New Jersey, not far from Milford. And I see the things they do, and they look like they're having fun, and I'm really interested in that gallery. So I'm not there yet, but I'm aiming at that at some point. So right now, Gamut and the Artery, next WCAA, Wayne County Arts Alliance in Honesdale.
Cool. And any online presence you want to push? Or?
Oh, yeah. LauraLippay.com. Yeah.
Okay.
I try to keep up with it. Mostly I want to do the prints there. I do put the originals there, but I don't find people buying originals from online very much, at least not until, if I ever get to be, some big name or something. I just don't see it really happening. But the prints are there. They start at $7. And, it's a good place to, you can see your art in different ways. So I like that about the website, but, mostly I feel like it's good for prints. But you can see the art that I have available there as well.
Cool.
Thank you for asking. And Instagram, Laura Lippay Art.
Okay, and I'll throw it all underneath so people can find it.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for doing the show.
Thank you, Mr. Shivers.
Absolutely.
It was fantastic to talk to you.
So hopefully everybody will come out and see your work, and I'll be pushing it myself too.
I love it. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. And of course, thank you for listening to this episode and making it through another one. Thank you, Laura, for coming on the show. It really was fun to talk to her and to learn about how she does her work, where her inspiration comes from, all that artsy mishigas. Don't forget, you could find this episode and all the other ones on all major podcast platforms. What does that mean? Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, the list goes on. You could also find it on YouTube with a little bit of video, some episodes more than others. And don't forget, the secret word was, what the hell was it? Craft. Find it and correctly timestamp it on the YouTube version and maybe win a prize. Who knows? I'm trying to pump these episodes out quicker, so there'll be more episodes coming. In the meantime, take care of yourself and take care of somebody else.
Goodbye, wimps.